Japanese. So what you have here is a long, simmering relationship that is not good. Anthony, does this ring to you something? Gordon suggests history, lives on a razor's edge, and this could draw the United States in. Do you see?
Well, I don't think we should underplay this just because it's old. And we're talking about culture that's several thousand years old, so 81 years isn't actually that long of a time. That may be a third of our existence, but it's not a third of theirs.
We talk about the Depression every day.
Yeah, it's right? I don't think necessarily downplay that aspect, but I don't think that the right response to this is to get hostile from a public diplomatic position. I'm sure that Panetta, in talks with the military, is intimating that we're still behind Japan. I don't think that that's changing. The Obama administration is not changing that position. But to publicly say, hey, look, the reason why we're here is because we're trying to keep lines of communication open. That wasn't the case in the Cold War, so I don't think this is a similar scenario. We're going to continue to be working together. We want to have a voice with the Chinese in the midst, because we know we have a voice with the Japanese in the midst of this conflict. I don't think this is the wrong approach.
I would think that right now, if I were the Chinese leadership, though, the U.S., Gordon's saying that we should sort of draw a strong line and say, look, you have to act appropriately in the region. The U.S. foreign policy is in a bit of disarray right now. The Obama administration is certainly feeling the heat from critics who are saying, what's going on in the Middle East? If I'm China, I'm thinking that this is a pretty good time to push my hand. This is a pretty decent time to actually try to sort of be expansive, make other countries look weaker for the domestic political reasons that Gordon outlined. I can see that happening now. You are not going to get some sort of a strong pushback from the Obama administration right now against China because they don't want to deal with any real problems.
So let me ask you this, Buck. What is our obligation? Beijing apparently sent patrol ships into Japanese claimed waters, anyway, around these islands. Does the United States have a military obligation to push these Beijing patrol ships back?
No, we're not about to send an aircraft carrier in to push Beijing patrol ships back. Gordon, what is the status of our agreement with Japan specifically? They can only arm up to a certain degree, is that correct? And we have a mutual pact. Explain that to me. And how does Japan match up against China right now in a naval sense?
Well, Japan matches up very well against China in Japanese waters. The United States has an obligation to defend Japanese-administered territory. We don't take a position on the sovereignty of the Senkakus, or the Diaoyus, as the Chinese call them, but because they are, in fact, administered by Japan, they are covered by this treaty, and Secretary Panetta needs to say that. Unfortunately, there have been too many incidents where the United States needed to speak up. And one of the reasons why I think China is so assertive and sometimes even hostile is because they believe that we're leaving Asia and that they can beat us up. So we do need a real signal of resolution, because if we do that, I think the Chinese will back off.
Let's make sure we're on the table. That's on the table is the foreign policy idea, and there are people that disagree with this, that the economic costs of war are high enough to prevent too catastrophic of military action. So while there actually might wind up being a skirmish over these islands, it is almost inconceivable.
Sort of a mad policy applied to economics.
Yes, absolutely. It's almost inconceivable that we're going to see a World War III scenario, given the economic costs that this would cause for both the United States and China. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be a small fight that might break out in one sense.
A ship might go down, but people aren't going to go
But this is not going to. We're not going to have the Japanese attacking Hawaii or Los Angeles. It's not going to be.
What do you say to that, Gordon?
Well, I think, that sounds right, but got to remember, in 1914, people were saying that the German economy was too tied to that of England's for there to be a general conflict. A lot of these wars, they don't make sense, but they do occur. And the part of the problem is that we are drifting into a dangerous situation. Yeah, I agree. We're probably not going to be in World War III tomorrow morning, but we are going in that direction. And that's why countries in the region are concerned. And that's why countries in the region want the U.S. there, because they can see that this is not going in the right direction by any means. Deterrence is breaking down, and nothing good ever happens when that occurs.